Thanks, Lascon Corla, and thanks for selecting this important matter for me locally in my constituency, and I'm glad that the Senior Minister himself is here to take this issue. Minister, you will no doubt be aware of the shock and the disappointment, and I think also the anger which was expressed by pupils, by staff, by parents, by the entire community in Croom in Limerick recently, following the news that the company Salmon Contracting Group, which was or has been reported as being the lowest tenderer for the construction of the much and long-awaited new secondary school building, that company has been placed into examinership and has really thrown the whole process into a state of flux arising from the decision of the High Court to appoint an examiner. Minister, you'll be aware that the whole process of building a new secondary school in Croom has been dogged by many disappointments, by much controversy and by a huge amount of delay. It has been going on since the early noughties. We've had issues in relation to the site suitability. We've had issues in relation to the size of the school. We've had issues in relation to planning permission, which had to be obtained on at least 3 occasions, having been allowed to lapse, having had to go to Board Penala. We've had issues in relation to the access road. And finally, there was some light beginning to appear at the end of the tunnel, and there was a little bit of hope that it might pass through the tender stage and that, in fact, a contractor would be appointed. And any time I inquired from the local Education and Training Board, the Limerick and Clare ETB, which is the patron, what was the status, we were promised on a number of occasions that, in fact, construction would have commenced well before now. But suffice to say, we are where we are in relation to it. And I think really it would be worth your while taking the opportunity, if it ever presents itself, to actually visit the present facility which operates as a secondary school, and my colleague who is here in the chamber, Deputy Tom Neville, will know all too well. It's really substandard, and that's putting it mildly. The pupils and the staff have to operate in prefabricated buildings, many of them which are years old and are so substandard that it beggars belief that, in fact, they would pass any degree of safety standards or indeed inspection. So I suppose really my purpose in raising this is to try and keep the pressure on you, Minister, and indeed on your department to try and bring a bit of positivity to the whole mood surrounding this, because the community in Croom and indeed the community that the school serves are very worried. Some feel that it will never go ahead at all. I think that needs to be knocked on the head by you and clarified that there is in fact determination on your side to see this project out and to ensure that the new school building, which has been promised now, I think, well over 16 or 17 years ago at this point in time, will in fact be delivered. I think in time this will be seen as a case study by the Department of Education in how not to build a new school. So I suppose my questions to you, Minister, are you in a position to tell us today what's the update in relation to the tender process? Has the Salmon Contracting Group formally withdrawn from the tender process, which is the stated desire of everybody, including the Education and Training Board? Can you update us on any discussions that you or your department have had with the Salmon Contracting Group, or indeed the building unit in Athlone? And just effectively, now what will the timeline be in terms of delivering the new school building?
Thank you very much. Minister.
I'd like to thank the Deputy for raising this. I know it is a concern to many deputies. I think the Deputy is right in that there has been a difficult development process for this project. The original decision was a devolved decision to the ETB that they would run the project, and that was a service level agreement was put in place. A planning application was submitted and granted in April 2014, but that planning application was appealed to on board Penala by a third party, and the granted planning permission was overturned by the board. Now, I don't know the background to that myself, but clearly, planning difficulties are not unknown in the development of projects. Following further consultation, a new application was lodged and planning permission was received in January 2017. However, the Limerick County Council approached the ETB to ask it to consider an alternative access route to the school site. As part of a planning permission granted, access to the school site was to be achieved by upgrading an existing road. The alternative route proposed by the local authority involved the development of a new road off a distributor road, which would open up contiguous lands for development. As my department had no difficulty in principle with the local authority's proposal, it mandated the ETB to make a capped offer of a capital contribution to the cost of the new road, equivalent to what it would cost to upgrade the existing road in accordance with the planning permission granted. Following some period of consideration of the offer by the local authority and correspondence between the local authority and the ETB, my department's offer was accepted. To facilitate access to the school from the proposed new road, the design team had to make some adjustments to the layout of the new school site to place the entrance at a different point in the site. The ETB and its design team submitted a Stage 2B submission for the project incorporating the requisite design changes to my department towards the end of last year. A Stage 2B submission provides a detailed cost plan for the project prior to going to tender. This was approved by my department and the project went to tender. When the tender process was completed, the ETB filed a tender report with my department as required, and this is currently being evaluated. Once this evaluation has been completed, the project will be allowed to proceed to the award of a contract and construction. I expect that it should happen within the coming weeks. The contract duration will be 17 months. I should say that the tender process is a confidential process, and I'm not at liberty, indeed, nor is the ETB, to talk about those who have succeeded or not succeeded in applying for such a tender. The department appreciates that the school is anxious to see the project getting to site as soon as possible, particularly after the difficult passage through the planning stages. The construction stage is fast approaching, and I look forward to my department being able to give the go-ahead for that shortly.
Thanks. But, Minister, what you need to appreciate and focus on is this. You've mentioned in your reply the access road, and we're well aware of that, and that's not really an issue now. The problem now is that it has been reported quite widely that the company which is lowest in the tender process, who was about to be given the contract and hasn't been given the contract, but was about to be, and is the lowest tenderer, has now been placed into examinership. And it has been said that the next move is to ask that company to remove themselves from the process, to allow your department and the ETB to engage with whoever is next in line in terms of the tender process. And this is the crux of it. We have to get over this hurdle as quickly as possible. And that's why I'm raising it here today with you, in terms of trying to impress upon you the importance of trying to get over the latest hurdle which we're experiencing in it. Because if you read any of the media reports which reported on the appointment of an examiner to the salmon contracting group, it says that other parties came in to offer support to the salmon contracting group as part of their examinership proposal to the High Court. But suffice to say, all of that really is going on at one level, whilst on the ground level we have to try and deal with the reality that pupils have to try and learn in exceptionally substandard conditions, and that teachers and the school managers have to try and operate in exceptionally substandard conditions. So really what I'm trying to elicit from you, and you may not be in a position to tell us here today, but what I want to try and get from you is a statement or indeed a commitment that you realise the importance, you realise how long this has dragged on, and that you will try and prioritise it within the building unit of your department in Tullamore, because it has simply dragged on for too long on so many levels. And finally, if I could extend to you, Minister, on behalf of the community and the Parents Association of Coláiste Chiarán, an invitation to actually visit the existing school when you next are in the area. I think it would make a very lasting impression upon you to see actually the conditions that they have to work in. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister.
No, well, I can understand what the Deputy is saying, and I think I have indicated in my reply that this is regarded as a priority project, and we do recognise the difficulties such as the appeal, the layout of the road and so on. But equally, I think the Deputy will understand that I can't compromise a tender process. This is a commercially confidential process, and there are very strict procedures as to how the award of public contracts should occur, how those who are successful and those who are not successful should be notified as the process goes forward, and bidders can challenge a tender outcome before a contract is signed. So I have to be aware of those. Of course, in the event that any company in an examinership is a bidder in this project, that would of course be taken into account under the legal procedures that apply. However, the matter of who is involved, who is successful, and what procedures will occur is commercially confidential, and I have to respect that confidentiality, because I think the Deputy would appreciate if some disruption to the tender process was the cause of further delay. I think the Deputy would be the first to be pointing the finger at the failure to respect the terms of a tender. So I regret that that's all I can say to the Deputy at this point, but I do understand the priority that the school community attributes to this and the frustration that